Okay, where are these markets going? Let's check the charts. Good afternoon, everybody. It's Greg Schnell, and I am here with the weekend review. Lots going on out there. We actually hit new highs on the NASDAQ 100 and on the S&P 500. We didn't hit it on the NASDAQ Composite, but that's pretty impressive, and that showing was evident. We had some volume. We had a nice push up in the morning, and then basically the afternoon just tried to hold on to the gain. So interesting spot to sit in for the weekend. To find my blogs, StockCharts.com, go to the articles tab, and you can look at the drop-down menu on the right. I write in 3 different areas: the Canadian technician, don't ignore this chart, and chart watchers. Please hit subscribe at the bottom. And also I've got a little bit more information on the GregSchnell.com launch. For contact information, you can always email me, info@gregschnell.com, on Twitter at SchnellInvestor, and on my website, gregschnell.com. The agenda: cyclical stocks that outperform. We're going to try and show you how to look for those, see what's going on, and give you some stocks to work with. Just a very basic scan. Anybody could do this. You can copy the text exactly, and then it'll run for you. Sorting a list, and then saving the sort order, and how I analyze the list and sell signals or buy signals. And then for a full market review that you might have seen me do before with commodities, currencies, equities, and bonds, I'll have that available as part of my subscription service at gregschnell.com. I launched my Founders Service this week, and so if you'd like to see that full market review, this is the way that you'll be able to get access to it. Click and then go to the Private Investors tab. Click on the annual membership, the red area. You'll see it's priced there, and then enter the coupon code under Founder, and click the arrow just to the right side of the coupon code box to confirm. So that should show the discount for you, and then that will lock in that pricing for an annual rate for life. So that's what I've got started. It's been rolling out this week. Hopefully, if you're interested, this 70 or 68% off offer appeals to you, and you could find something there for you. Okay, so here's the intraday view of what's going on. We see that the market was basically grinding sideways. Thursday we closed near the highs, and then Friday we had this nice surge in the morning, and then just calmed down Friday afternoon and drilled sideways. Same thing on the S&P 500. This 300 level on SPY has been a hurdle. Now, the one thing that I've been wondering about is whether or not we had any power to break out, because we keep having such declining volume here. But the last 2 days have actually had higher volume as we've tried to push up, so that's a little bit more encouraging. Want to keep watching for that just to see if we're going to be able to maintain that. Obviously, we have this wedge forming where we have higher lows and lower highs in terms of momentum, and now the real question is, can we break out? So we've broken out. We're going to close Friday on a high. Excellent. Now what we want to see is in the week following, we want to hold that high. We don't want to fall back. And that's what's happened with each one of these other ones. We've gently pushed up to a new high, couldn't hold it, fell back, and rolled away. So after being up here, down, up, down, up, down, perhaps we're ready to roll higher here. So watching that very, very closely. Okay, on the weekly chart basis, we still have declining momentum on these charts, but it would be really nice if they started to turn up. So far, the PPO is just above the signal line, and the way you can tell that is because this is still negative, this number. This tells us the distance between them, and right now the distance is negative. On the NASDAQ 100, they're both at the same level, 0.001. So with that, we're watching for next week to see if we can finally make some traction heading higher. What I wanted to talk about today, so we're hitting new highs. So one of the questions is, okay, well, what's outperforming? And if we were about to break out of this range finally, then that should be nice. And hopefully we could do that for 3 or 4 months. And the seasonality would suggest that that's what we're about to do. So this is a good place to look to get on board and find some things that are working. So you could literally go through and pick any one of these groups. And as an example, I've picked the cyclical sector. Now you might say, how do I know how to spell all this? Well, what you do is you go down here and you pick whatever group you want. So in this case, whatever, you want to pick financial sector. So you would put that in and it's going to give you a line at the bottom here, and then you would just grab it and move it up to the top. And so to do that, you could put it up here, but whenever you start a scan, you have to start it without the word "and" in front of it. And if you put these 2 slashes, it means that these things are not going to be looked at by the scan engine. So in this case, it's only going to look in the cyclical sector, and it's going to look for something that's outperforming the S&P 500 over the last 60 trading days by at least 5%. So if the S&P 500 was up 3%, then this would have to be up 8% in order to do that. You can change that any way you want. If you like to trade small stocks, then you would say close under $5. If you like to trade, bigger stocks, you could put close over $20. Whatever you want can go in here. And then so it's a very simple scan. So we have this top line, and you could pick whatever group you wanted. If you didn't want a whole sector, you could go back and do it based on an industry group. But what we're trying to find here is what is outperforming the S&P 500 as we break out. And, one of the areas that we expect to lead is the cyclical sector. And so for that, we're going to look at the ETF that would do that, and we can also look within each group to see. So I'm going to go and run this scan, and when we run it, this scan is going to show our scan results. And what we see here is we've got 193 stocks in the cyclical sector. So it reads out the scan here. So the group is the cyclical sector, and the price relative is greater than 5, and then the close is greater than 5%. So it's giving us a whole list of stocks here. They're sorted alphabetically, probably not what we want. So what I would like to do is either sort them by scooter ranking, putting the strongest ones first, or we could sort them by percent change, like which ones are moving fastest. So whether or not we want to sort them by scooter ranking right now, we could decide that in a little bit. Let's just leave that for now. And what we're going to do is take available action here, and we're going to replace an existing chart list. And I just have 10 chart lists that I scan to. So you can just go jump it into Scanning John or whatever. And we're going to say OK. So now with this scan list, we can see that these are the stocks that really had a big move today. And then perhaps more valuable is what had a big move this week. And you can see lots of stocks were up more than 10% this week. So that's at least we're finally getting some heartbeat here. And Tesla was the big mover because so many shorts got squeezed. We're going to look at these stocks in this order, but we could also just add the sector. We probably don't need the sector, so let's take that off, but we might want the industry group, and then we could sort by that if we wanted to. So the idea being, let's find out what's actually, let's go back here and sort by change, and then sort by industry group. So it's going to show us this profile by each industry group. So what's performing well, what's performing badly in each group, and then we can look through. But again, everything in this group has outperformed over the last 3 months, is outperforming the S&P 500 by at least 5%. So it gives us something to work with. And you could sort on whatever you want. But I'm going to try this because I haven't displayed this one before, and I thought it might be helpful to pick a different method of sorting. Again, we want to lock this in. So if we just hit 10 per page right now, the problem is it would go and it would flip it back to the alphabetical sort order because we haven't controlled it. So what we have to do is put numbers in front of all of these columns in order to control this sort order like we've asked for it. So if we go down to the very bottom of the page and hit number in sorted order, and it says the current sort order will be preserved by adding numbers. Is that what you want to do? And the answer is yes. And so again, it's going to take and put numbers in front of all of these and keep this sort order that we've asked for. So when we hit that button. Now it's rotated back to intraday, so if you're wondering why it changed. But anyway, we can go to this 1 week view, and now what we want to do is go into 10 per page and start to look through these charts. I, in particular, don't really want to look at daily charts, and the reason is I just find that the PPO is a little too whippy for me and I don't get any real information. I like the fact that this is, at new, whatever, more than 55-day highs. This is nice. That's okay, but it's not really the format I want to do it. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to take my chart. I'm going to go over here and get my weekly chart look, and I want to put that in here, and then I want to affect all of the charts within the list. I want to apply the style to all, and the way I do that is hitting this button, and it says, do you want to change the period for all the settings? So my daily chart is 18 months, my weekly chart is 5 years, so I have to say yes, otherwise that's not going to work. So here's my 5-year view, and what we're looking for on this chart is, again, big trend changes. So we've been going down, 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 and now finally we've started to work our way higher. And really just, this week was the first time that Nordstrom's finally broke above, I'll call it a 4 or 5 month base. This is looking pretty bullish. Scooter ranking is starting to improve from terrible to up, and again, they just opened their New York store this week. I think they spent over 500 million on it or something, so it's got to be quite a nice store. Anyway, that's the kind of thing we want. We want big picture, not looking for a short term here. So let's go in here and click on the summary view. Sorry, the 10 per page view. And what that's going to give us again is this is grouped by apparel retailers. Then the next group will come up. So we're not just going to get a strong blast of stocks across different groups. Now, we've got this, but one of the things that I like to notice is when this downtrend in momentum is breaking, and it's not always going to work, but particularly the longer the line in trend, the better. And so for me, this is Kohl's, and it's trying to break through here. And again, it stalled right at that line before and fell down here. Had a really bad break, and then what we've got now is we're trying to make new 4-month highs, just very similar to Nordstrom. And so with that, we can annotate this chart, but we can go back and just put it into, go back to this 10 per page view. So here's Urban Outfitters. I would say the downtrend is broken, so these are probably starting to run up. And again, this broke a few weeks ago, but it's just literally breaking above the 40-week moving average this week, so it's not like we're real late to the party here. And again, some of these are the better performers. This Caleres was up 4.37% this week, but had a big push and then just kind of stalled sideways. Land's End, same thing, big push, stalled sideways, could start to work. I want to see it break this downtrend in momentum. Tilly's, we're sitting here working sideways. Not a great looking chart, kind of gappy, and then we gapped down, gapped up, and it looks like we probably got earnings coming up relatively soon. Might be the end of November, but anyway, the problem is this chart is quite gappy and no real trend showing on it. We've been sideways for 3 years, so I'd probably avoid that. Shoe Carnival, run up, run down, starting to run back up again. I know people that can't walk past a shoe store, so that perhaps could be why these stocks are starting to outperform. And here we have Boot Barn turning up higher, and it's starting to make new 52-week highs with the exception of this intra-week candle, but this is the high close so far, so nothing wrong with that. That chart looks just fine. Buckle, this stock's been doing nothing for 3 years, but it has started to trend up recently and had a better showing this week. In the last 3-4 months. It's been up here. It didn't close near the high, so another worry, but maybe if you're interested there. Genesco, this one's been trending down sideways for the last 2 or 3 months. We have the same sort of discussion on all of these charts, sideways for the last 2 or 3 months, and they're just starting to turn up. So as the S&P breaks out to new highs, obviously this would be a nice place to look. Now here's a significant downtrend in momentum here, just going below zero. If we can start to break up, that's a nice place to look. Okay, we'll keep going. Here's Zoomies, another apparel retailer. This one's breaking out to new 4-year highs. I think you got to buy that. That's just going to keep moving up. And then you just put your stop under a most recent low here. So you're not going to take a huge position, even if you wanted to use last week's low or something. But it's starting to break out here. So if that doesn't hold, I probably want out tight. So I'd probably put my stop at the bottom of this week, and then if that doesn't hold, or if you think that's too tight, then maybe the 10-week. But this is starting to break out. If the overall market's going to break out, that's the kind of participation I want to be in. Looking at Vince Holdings here, this one's been trying to push up stocks around $25, but you can see they've done 1 for 10 splits where you had 10 shares, now you have 1, so that's why this stock looks so crushed. And then what we have here is it's been trying to break back out to the upside. If we shortened it and got rid of all of these high prices back here, it would give us a little better picture, but at least momentum is starting to improve. Foot Locker, I think we all know what they sell, and this has been sideways for 6 months and just starting to break out here, momentum turning up, full stochastic starting to go. Doesn't look too bad. City Trends, same thing, consolidating. Lots of these charts were consolidating. If they're going to start to all break out together, that's pretty bullish. Here's TJ Maxx. And as this breaks out here, what you see is a push up and then a pull back. Nothing wrong with that. Again, we're still working. Remember that curve on the change stocks. So we started with the ones that went up the most this week, and then it'll come all the way down to the ones that, even though they're down this week, they've been outperforming the S&P 500 over the last 60 days and are up by more than 5% than the S&P is up. Okay, so here's Cato, again down a little bit this week, just jogging sideways. Burlington Stores, this one broke out and has done nothing since. Francesco's Holding, this one had a big move up and has been consolidating in a flag pattern, and now we'd like to see obviously that walk higher. Just keep watching it. The chart looks really ugly because it was so compressed up here. Again, what I would do is just shorten it to 1 or 2 years, and then you'd see a normal sort of chart look. Tenneco Automotive, we've clearly moved out of the apparel retailers and into a different section. And in that different section, what we've got now is this Tenneco Automotive. And what I'm liking here is we're starting to make new 6 months highs, pushing above. The chart looks pretty good coming out of this base, but this is a big, ugly downturn. There's a downtrend in momentum here. I would really want it to get through. This isn't going to be my favorite if we've got a whole bunch of other charts that are starting to work. Here's this auto parts maker. This one's really starting to surge. Scooter ranking up above 75. I kind of like that. So it's really starting to outperform. XPEL, so this is grinding its way higher, and as it works its way up, you could see, up big, then pulled back for almost a year, up big, pulling back here. It's not my favorite chart setup. It's not bad. It's just not my preference. Diana, this one's just too choppy. Not interested. Borg Warner, this one's trying to get going. The one thing I would say is it's made a higher low in momentum here, so this might have an opportunity. Again, it's been choppy for a whole year. Standard Motor Products, 3 years of nothing. Autolive, this one's starting to try and push higher, so that looks okay. Gentherm, this one, big base here, sitting here for a year. Not a whole bunch of breakout, but when it does finally break, this was a nice run in here, and then it just literally left. So yeah, momentum is going above zero. That's nice. Stone Ridge, working our way sideways here for over, pretty much all year. This would really need to get going for me to get interested. Magna International, Canadian auto car company or auto parts company, big company as well. Anyway, you can see the base building here. It wouldn't take much to hit new 52-week highs. And this one, they're involved in all the latest and greatest technology, so not a bad stock. LKQ, this one just grinding sideways here. Nothing really going on. Genuine Parts, this one's been pulling back, finally got back above its 40-week. Interesting only because it's a very volatile stock, but again, you're back at levels you've been at for 5 years. Not sure that's the one I want to play. Doorman products. So here we go again. Auto parts, more auto parts just grinding sideways. Tesla had a really nice move this week, and one of the things that was more influential on Tesla was that not only did they have the new cars coming out of China's factory pretty soon, so that was I think part of the impetus that this gets going. But we can also see, let's just click on this. One of the things that I would want to watch for on Tesla, or I was watching for on Tesla, was we had this big downtrend. Set that in there. And what we wanted to see was Tesla really start to break above. And this week, it was sitting right on this line and it's finally breaking out. Look at the volume come in here. Now, a lot of that was short squeeze. It was, I'd say near the lower bounds of where Tesla normally trades. I actually thought it would come up here and probably get turned back at zero, but I just mentioned that I wouldn't trade it from the long side until we got a break in downtrend. That's what we got this week. Now, it's awfully hard to add after a $75 move or a $100 move. $71, yeah. So anyway, I like the chart. There's nothing wrong with it now, but I want to see a pullback here. And again, it's just hard when it hasn't done anything for months and then all of a sudden you get double the gains. So I wouldn't blame you for missing it, but it's an interesting stock to try and deal with. Here's Daimler, Mercedes. So this is trending down and trying to break higher. If all of these auto companies, we saw Magna on the list again, these are starting to break. Here's Harley trying to break a 3-year downtrend and get going. PPO right at zero. Pretty interesting. Scooter ranking touching 75 for the first time in 3 years. That might actually be something real change going on there. NIU, just a brand new company going sideways. Honda Motor Company, big downtrend starting to turn up. Again, all of these stocks had to outperform the S&P by 5% over the last 3 months. Fuji Heavy Industries still in the automobile section though, so this has been grinding higher slightly. VIP Shops, this has a beautiful move, so it's been holding nicely and then all of a sudden starts to break out. I like this one looks good to me. I'd try to find any sort of a pullback to give me an entry. Price Smart, this one had a big surge, pullback, and now surging again. That just looks good to me. This volume says something's going on there. Anyway, as we work through this, I'm trying to give you an idea. So what we've sorted by industry group, we've sorted by the strongest stocks of the week, not necessarily of everything, but we've sorted within a group that's breaking out compared to the S&P 500. All of those things are different ways of sorting. Again, I'm not trying to tell you that this is the only way. I want to show you the flexibility of this system and for you to go in and find things that you'd like to look for. Just because I do have that founder sale on right now, I just wouldn't mind showing you the types of things you'll get from me if you subscribe to the program. And so first of all, you'll get a weekly 1-hour video. You'll get an email with this PDF document in it, and then it'll also show on the PDF document the links to the video, my chart list, that kind of thing, so that you can go in and take a look. So just some general market commentary. So I was saying last week, breadth was improving at a glacial pace. My strength index sits at coin toss levels. For things to watch were emerging markets, bonds rolling over in price, up in yields, commodities could break higher. I think we saw gold have a pretty good week. We saw oil have a good week. Oil's closing at 1-month highs. Some of the copper miners are starting to break out. Emerging markets were starting to move. And again, we were waiting to see if some of these other sectors like software had been stumbling, that kind of thing. PayPal had a big pop yesterday. We also saw big pops in MasterCard, Visa, Square. Lots of them followed on with that. So interesting, just we were struggling a bit, and I just said selective buying in some of the other areas. But the charts were still positioned that they could break down again. And on a whole bunch of the scans I do, it was literally a 50-50 flip. We had, half of the groups up and half of the groups down. We had half of For big percentage moves, we didn't have enough sort of momentum. The number of net new highs was relatively light. All of those things go into trying to figure out, whether we can get some tailwind here and get the whole market moving higher. Obviously, having a big move like having the S&P go to new highs, you're not in a bear market when you're hitting new highs. The problem is, how much of a bull market are we in? And so that's what we try to work through. And every week I try to go through all of my data to generate that report for you. The software industry was going sideways, so just noting that this was a concern here, and you might what we want to watch for was to see if this whole sideways area is going to hold. And again, this is a frozen picture from last Friday. US dollar had broken the trend, so that was one of the reasons to start to look for commodities. It ended up gently climbing all week, but what we're trying to look for is things that are working. Emerging markets had started to break the downtrend, so that's an example. Anyway, I'm trying to show you a glimpse of 10 key charts that we're starting to show different pieces of data, and then from that, so that's a quick synopsis of the week and what to look for. And then as I go through the whole video, I go through currencies, commodities, bonds, indexes, just to make sure that you've got a 1 hour snapshot of the markets and places to look. And again, the other thing I like to do is I like to trade with a tailwind. So I want the majority of industry groups moving up. I want the majority, I want the markets to have a lot of breadth and thrust to them. So that will improve this week on the breakout. We had some significant moves in the consumer discretionary sector. All of that stuff is what the subscription model is trying to hand you. So hopefully with that, that'll help you. And then if you go down to the bottom here, just want to show you, I'll give you some quick synopsis of the weeks that worked and how the rest of the world is doing. And by the way, the rest of the world has picked up quite nicely. Now we're waiting to see if commodities can start to rock. And then in here, you'd get a link to the video and a link to the chart. The last thing, if you head over to the website, I just want to show you how that might work. So and if you just jump in here, so up at the top here, if you put your name in here, I'll send you an email and just say these are the new articles I wrote this week, all of the public ones. And for the private investors, you can go in here. This is a more detailed view of what you're going to get. And again, it's once a week. I'm not trying to overwhelm you. This isn't a day trading site where I give you new picks each night. This is literally just a once a week. And here's an annual, and you'd hit the subscribe button in here and fill it all out. So with that, what I want to make sure is you're aware of it. I have it at priced at 68% off for founders, and then once we get the site up and running, obviously it will change. So I don't intend to do an advertisement like this all the time, but just while I'm getting this launched, hopefully that'll let everybody know who's been a follower of my work for a long time. And if there's something there for you, great. And if not, no problem. Okay, last thing I want to do, let's just go back to here. I do want to point out that the USO, can't get that to work, USO had a very good week, and I just want to go in and look at gold as well. Gold was looking very good and then sold off during the day and then bounce back up on Friday. So watching closely to see how this resolves. But again, it's starting to break out here, and a nice push would be welcome. Gold ran up hard and then pulled back very gently. So what now we want to see is, can it take off to the upside? So with that, again, oil at 1 month highs, gold trying to push up to new highs. This commodity thing might start to roll. If you'd like more information, feel free to subscribe. Thanks again for taking the time to watch. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.